This is my father-in-law's wood shop located in Denmark. We were visiting this summer, and while we were there, we stopped in at a local antique store, and I saw this old chest of tools. It was sitting there, and the antique store owner was selling it as a set. He didn't want to break it apart. He has some documentation about who it belonged to, and it was a local carpenter in the area. And I guess he had passed away a while back, and his kids held on to the toolbox for some time. It did come with a little bit of documentation, and I'm going to show that a little bit later. But as soon as I saw it, I knew I had to have the tools. And granted, they're old and rusty, and there's not much to them at this point. But I'm going to see if I can't bring them back to life a little bit, and maybe I can make some projects with these, and that's what these videos, there's going to be a set of these videos, hopefully, that these are going to be about. So we actually packed these all up and threw them in a suitcase and flew them right on back here to Pennsylvania. And I brought them down to my shop in the suitcase. And this is almost exactly how we shipped them. There was a couple of the bigger hand planes we had to take out so that the one suitcase wasn't too heavy, but this is pretty much how we brought them home. And so I'm just going to go through these tools a little bit at a time and have a look at it. So this is the handle for a router plane. This here is some sort of a saw. I've never seen this type of saw before, but I'm sure it had some special use. A plane, another plane. There's at least 15 planes in this grouping, and I thought it was great that this one still had a little bit of sawdust in it. Another plane. And some of these tools, I mean, I don't even know what half of these things were. Obviously, these are all hand planes, but a lot of these I didn't know what sort of specialized use they had. I'm not really into hand tools all that much, especially knowing what some of these older European type tools were for. So I think with this is going to come some research, and obviously if anybody wants to comment about what they see here, just mention a timestamp if you have any information about them. So some pretty impressive looking tools. The irons all seemed relatively sharp, actually, for having been sitting around for this long. There was quite a bit of rust. There is quite a bit of rust on the blades, but I don't think it's anything that's insurmountable that we can't get through with some work. Here we've got a little saw that came with a case that I'm guessing the carpenter made himself. An old rusty set of calipers. These might have seen the end of their time. A brush. There were quite a few calipers and compasses in this set. Here you can see a giant compass. Another plane. Little levels. I believe that's a veneer saw. Here's a hand plane that was missing its iron. And some other small type of saw. This, I have no idea what this is. Drill. More calipers. There were actually several sets of these calipers, different sizes. This was a very large set. A small compass with the previous owner's initials carved into it. I thought that was great. You can see later on in the documentation, I have one of the invoices from his old business, and his name was on there, and those were his initials, ER. He had a few awls as well in the set. We've got a few gouges here, some larger gouges. And there was also quite a few files in the system, in the set. This one here has a little stand, and yet another hand plane with a rounded bottom. More files. There were many files in the set. Now some of the handles are cracked. I wanted to try to keep the tools as original as possible, but for some of the handles that are pretty beat up, I would probably be turning some new handles for those tools, and possibly trying to keep them to look the same way that the old ones looked. There's some drill bits and center punches, molding plane. These calipers were actually in much better shape than the previous pair. These actually are usable. A couple of other little tools. I think there's another router blade in there. That might have just been a marking knife of some sort. That also had the initials carved into it. Again, more sizes of drill bits. And files, and files, and files. Another gouge. Another base for what I believe is a router plane. And file, some larger files this time. You can see the bench, the tools are building up quite a bit. There was quite a few tools actually packed into that box. It took two of us to actually move the box into our car when we bought it from the antique shop. Here you can see some smaller chisels. Another molding plane. It's a scraper of some sort. Yeah, we've got a box here. This box had in another drill bit that you could actually make variable size. A little Stanley spoke shave scraper. I believe that was the only Stanley tool in the bunch. More files. Another gouge. The sawtooth sharpener, I believe. A little marking gauge. And there was a set of what appear to me to be mortising chisels. I don't know quite how those work, if they were actually designed to fit into something or if that's actually the handle, but I'll have to do a little bit of research on those. We've got some more files and awls and screwdrivers and things. Another marking gauge. And here we have actually the blades for the router plane. You can see how these slide into the bottom here, and you tighten the wing nut on the back to lock that blade in place. Little angle gauge. Everything's got its fair share of rust on it, so that'll be the bulk of the work. So that's it. That's the entire set. Here you can kind of see a pulled back shot of everything that was in that case. It's a pretty impressive display of everything that was in there. So we did manage to bring home all the tools. There's the suitcase empty, and here's the documentation that I was mentioning. The box also has a lock on the side of it, so I brought home the keys with me. The box is actually still in Denmark right now. We'll be bringing that home with our next trip, which is going to be in December. So that was some labels. Here's an invoice from the carpenter's actual business. There you can see his initials. And it looks like he tried to actually write some documentation here about what these tools were. So there's a little bit of a list of what they were, and I'm going to have to get my wife to translate that for me. But that's it. There's the keys, and hopefully in December when I bring this tool chest back, I'll be able to reunite the tools with the chest and proudly display this in my shop, and hopefully come to use some of the tools that were in the case. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and look for more as we restore some of these tools. Thank you.